You mentioned that you're doing freelance writing at the same time you're pregnant, and then you've got a baby. So at what point do you go from freelance writing toward dipping a toe in toward middle grade writing? When did this dream you had of being a writer start to become? When did you start to take steps toward making that a reality?
So I think growing up, I always thought that I would write for kids because those are the books I loved. In high school, I was obsessed with Sarah Dessen, like every other high school girl. But I was like, I'm going to write YA like Sarah Dessen. But I realized really quickly, YA is actually not my favorite genre. I do love Sarah Dessen, but I do not love that many YA books. There's a few that I think are really, really phenomenal, but it's not what I gravitate towards. I really gravitate towards middle grade. I mean, when I'm walking around the library and I'm in the middle grade section, I almost just get emotional thinking about how much some of these stories meant to me. And so I wanted to try writing middle grade. And so, like I said, the first middle grade book I wrote didn't end up being published, but it did snag me an agent. So I actually wrote most of that when I was doing some mission work in Missouri. And then while I was freelancing in Wisconsin, working at this marketing engineering firm and querying, I was doing a lot of edits and overhauls of it. And plus I had a baby in there, so that took up a lot of my time. But then I thought I'm going to send out some queries and just see what we get. And I actually got an agent really fast. I mean, really fast. I think in like 5 days I had 3 offers. But that was a really great lesson for me because although I had these offers and I went with Alex and I was super excited, I got in my head a little bit like, oh, well, I got an agent pretty quickly. So clearly this book is just going to skyrocket. And that is not at all what happened. Again, it went on submission for like 9-10 months, and it's still a Word doc on my computer that I do think still has some solid parts. So maybe I'll revisit it one day. But that was a really good lesson for me to just expect nothing, because in publishing, it seems like so much is meaningless, and we like attach meaning to things that isn't really there. So that was, oh gosh, I mean, I don't even know, maybe like 4 years ago now that I queried Alex. It was a while ago.
So had you already started the new novel while that was on submission?
No, I hadn't. I had mostly been focusing on my freelance stuff. I think to be honest, I was pretty overly confident in that book on submission. I was like, well, it's going to sell eventually, so we're fine. And then it didn't. And that was really, really hard to hear. And I did have a little bit of a crisis, some imposter syndrome there. But when you've had a dream your entire life, like one book not selling isn't enough to crush it. It might be enough to like make you cry in your bed and eat Oreos and call your mom, but it's not enough to like completely make you give up. So I was pretty quick after that to be like, all right, Alex, what are we doing next? And that's when I sent him a bunch of book ideas and kind of rocked and rolled from there.
So since you're being so honest, how long did it take you to make that transition from devastated Oreo eating to productive and hopeful again?
I don't think too long. I mean, I'm going to say maybe a week. We have a pretty good rule in our family, which is that you can be upset about things for not like major things. Okay. Like if someone's parent dies, you get longer than this. But if you had like a work disappointment, you get 24 hours to cry in your bed and eat your Chipotle and just grovel, think all of those things that you don't want to think, like, I'm a terrible writer, poor me. And then you need to get over it and move along, because your job's not your identity. And being a writer is not like my life purpose. I don't think that. And so even if I never had a book published, I would be okay. And I knew that deep down. And so I think after a few days, I was kind of ready to shake it off. And I mean, Alex told me, he's like, just because it's not selling now, it doesn't mean the market's not going to turn around in 5 years and we take it back out. And so, I mean, I still think that could be true. I haven't deleted it, so still have it.
No, you should never take an old book out and just like burn it in the backyard or whatever.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? That's your whole heart. Don't burn your heart. What an amazingly healthy mental attitude. I'm a little bit jealous because I've been guilty of wallowing for longer than 24 hours at times in my life. So what is your do you have a firm idea of what your life purpose is?
Yeah, I mean, not to take us to church, but I'm a very faithful person. And so I think yeah, that really shapes a lot of my identity. I think is that I know that my life purpose is not to have any concrete work goal or to be, a mother of 7 or to do these concrete things. It's just to be a daughter of a God. That's what I believe is my purpose. And so life can look 1,000 different ways, but if I'm being a daughter of God and I'm striving for that and I'm striving to really be a saint, then I can handle a lot of disappointment. I mean, I'm not Claire the writer. If I never wrote another word, that wouldn't take away from my identity or purpose. And I mean, I'm saying all this very confidently, but I also do have a book deal, like when I was in the waiting, it's not that easy to remember that for sure, but I do have a great husband and a great community who remind me of those things. And so I think that's why I'm able to kind of bounce back. And also I think just the nature of this business is that it is so up and down, and your highs are so high and exciting, and your downs are crying in your bed. And it's just both part of it. And you have to realize that it's not like being a civil engineer, not to knock on the engineers again. I feel like there's an engineer listening to this who's going to be like, man, this chick hated engineers. But it's just a very emotional job, and those emotions can be high or they can be low, but you have to keep your perspective or you're just going to drive yourself nuts.
So since you have a podcast about your faith, what role does your faith play in your writing?
I think that my faith plays a huge role in my writing. Again, mainly it's that perspective of like that my identity is not tied to my writing, and that helps me when I get bad reviews or bad news or things like that. But also, so in What Happens Next, Abby is Catholic, and it's really not mentioned. It's not at all like this huge storyline. She mentions like, oh, and then we went to mass. Like, it's a very normal part of her life. And that was really important to me, actually, because I grew up Catholic, and I really did not see a ton of books where kids mentioned going to church, even though it was a really big part of my life. And not even like I wanted books to be about, youth group or like priests or whatever, but just in the sense that like I go to school, I go to the grocery store, I go to church. Like, I wanted to see church be a normal place. And I feel like a lot of times now when books involve church, it's either like a huge plot, like it's a Christian book, it's in the Christian part of the bookstore, or it's kind of painted as something that comes from like the author's own past or woundedness, or like they've had struggles and that comes on their book. And that's amazing. If that's the story they want to tell and that's their journey, that's wonderful. But I know that
Together Now, a zombie story is available now. Continue.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But there's a lot of people who that's not their journey, and they want to read just about a normal Catholic family who just, has artwork of saints on their walls and goes to church. It's like a normal thing. It's not super weird. And so I wanted to just give it that sense of normalcy. But at the same time, it's definitely not a Christian book. Like, she's not in the book talking about Jesus, but she is talking about hope. And so to a lot of Christians, those play into each other.
Sure. Can you foresee yourself writing a book that's more religiously themed?
So I've written Christian nonfiction through a small publisher, and I've done one book through them, and then I have another one coming out in a few months through that Christian nonfiction. I don't know if I would do Christian fiction because I really enjoy the challenge of bringing hope to completely secular stories, to be honest. There's some good Christian fiction writers, but sometimes I think when you put like the title of Christian on it, like, where it's going to be shelved. There's people instantly who are not going to want to read it, and you're just a little more limited, I think, in your options. So I can't super foresee myself writing Christian fiction, but never say never. I don't know.